Hello, hello, welcome to our Winkeltje gig. This is our second for the year. This was inspired by Tiny Desk. During COVID times, the people from Onmuten decided to create this project. And for today, we have our very special guest, Thomas McGrath. There we go. Hey. So, welcome to the show. My name's Tom. And today I will be doing a little bit of a musical show, a little bit of a narrative show. It's going to have some history in it, some interesting anecdotes. Yeah. So thank you very much to the wonderful people from International Social Work who made this live stream possible. Yeah, I hope you enjoy. So, first off, I'm Tom. I'm actually a jazz pianist, but I've been playing guitar and doing vocals for street performing for nearly a decade now. And the interesting thing about street music is, well, not just the making money part, but you also meet a bunch of people. You get to make money standing out in the sun making music. Yeah, you really get kind of a feeling for what people are going through in their daily lives. For some reason, being a street musician, it seems like an invitation to people to come up to you and chat about how they're doing. And just the other week, I was playing on the street here in Nijmegen, and a couple of friends of mine were walking by, and we decided to do a song together. And we did Hallelujah. We were doing harmonies. It was actually a really good rendition. I was kind of proud of it. And this old guy walks up, and you see he has tears in his eyes, and he just walks up to one of the girls, holds her hand, looks her dead in the eye, and he says, "I'm 87 years old, and my wife just died." So, we didn't really know what to say. We just went, "You're brave. Thanks for sharing that. I hope you feel better. Is there anything we can do?" And he just kind of went quiet and he shuffled off. Kind of a sad moment, but life goes on. A week or two later, I was playing a different part of town, and I see this guy shuffling past, so I wave at him. I'm like, "Sir, how are you doing? Are you feeling a little bit better? I know you shared that thing last time. How are you feeling?" And it turns out he had some kind of stroke and his speech was impaired. So that's the reason why I didn't say very much the first time we met. And we kind of had this conversation that was just yes, no questions from my end, and him every now and then being able to kind of say a sentence fluidly. And then I filled in a little bit of the conversation, just, talking for the both of us as well. But eventually, he kind of went quiet. He looked at me and he said, "I'm 87. My wife's dead. I'm lonely. I just don't want to be here anymore." And he meant not to be here in the bigger picture. And, it really makes you think he probably doesn't have a very vibrant social life at the moment. His social circle is probably really small. He doesn't have a job. His partner, who was with him for several decades, is not around anymore. What are you supposed to do? You don't really have much to look forward to. So yeah, those are the kinds of moments that are kind of rewarding in a sense. Doing street music, you get to know people, they get to share their stuff with you. Yeah. Well, besides street music, I also really like music history. And specifically music history of Great Depression era America. This is something that kind of ties in with my personal experiences. I moved around a lot, and I lived in the States for a while, and yeah, it's this interesting kind of crossroads in history, that moment of time. The Great Depression was, for those of you who flunked history, end of the 20s through the 50s. At the beginning of the Great Depression, the radio was just starting to become a household item. And back then, they didn't really have, the sense of celebrity that we do now. So when you pick up an instrument in the 20s and you start to learn it, you're really only doing it for social reasons. You're doing it to sit around the piano with your family on Sundays, sing songs of worship, or just play by yourself and just enjoy yourself. And, nowadays, if you pick up a guitar, there's like this spark of a flame in the back of your mind that says, if I get really good at this, I could find myself in front of a camera. And you'll get recognition for it, or you can make a living off of it. Back then, that perspective didn't color the way that you listened to music or learned how to play music. Also, at the time, people were just starting to have more access to recording, stuff, and people were going around, amateur anthropologists, amateur historians, going around recording whatever they could find. So you have all these field recordings of people just traveling down south and recording gospel singers in their living rooms with their friends. It's really neat. And one of those songs, one of my favorites, is called Stand By Me by Sister Clara Hudman. And I'd like to play it for you now. When that storm of life's a raging, stand by me. When that storm of life's a raging, stand by me. When the world is tossing me like a ship out on the sea, O thou who rules the winds and waters, stand by me. Through all these trials and tribulations, stand by me. Through all these trials and tribulations, stand by me. When the hosts of hell assail, trying to pierce through the veil, while thou who pardoned Paul and Silas, stand by me. Well, when I'm growing old and feeble, stand by me. Well, when I'm growing old and feeble, stand by me. Well, when my life becomes a burden and I'm nearing home to the Jordan, oh, you lily of the valley, stand by me. Thank you. So yeah, that's a nice little innocent song by Sister Clara Hudman. Like I said, she has a kind of interesting biography. When she was 16, she moved in with this reverend and his dying wife, and she took care of this reverend's wife for 2 years while she was slowly passing away. And then 2 years later, the wife died, and immediately Sister Clara married her husband, to the consternation of the entire community, who was outraged at this immoral behavior of their pastor. And the stress got to the pastor so much that he started drinking a little bit more than he should have. So eventually he gave this sermon completely sloshed. Not what you want to see from your pastor. And out of shame, he ended up moving away with Sister Clara. And they moved like a couple times, and then they got divorced. And it's kind of like, what was the point to begin with then? But yeah, it's a nice song. It's my my script, so excuse me for that. So like I was saying, the Great Depression and the music that came out of it is something that really draws me. I guess I got to explain the Great Depression a little bit. The Great Depression was, like I said, period late 20s through the 50s, where the country kind of economically collapsed for a couple of reasons. The first being there was this ecological disaster where large swaths of land throughout the states just kind of like dried up and turned to dust, and the dust started blowing everywhere, and nothing would grow, and people had to leave their farms and move somewhere else trying to find temporary work. Also, just to give you a sense of scale, Oklahoma, over the course of these couple decades, lost a quarter of its entire population. 4 million people just had to up and ditch their life and move somewhere else. And as you can imagine, this doesn't happen elegantly. These people had to hitch rides on freight trains. They had to like walk across America just to find a place where they could make $1 a day, enough to survive on back then. And this kind of spawned or helped spawn a hobo culture, people who kind of spent their lives traveling in this way. And they had kind of codes with each other. There were these signs that they would draw on fences or on houses to let other hobos know, like, there's a dog here that barks, so be careful. Or if you talk about religion with these people, they'll give you $1, or they'll let you sleep in their barn or something like that. So funny enough, there's also a hobo union, and they had a meeting once a year. I just imagine them to be like the smelliest gatherings of people that you'll have ever witnessed. I don't know, it just strikes me as funny. They had their own rules for how to be a hobo. You gotta stay clean. You have to respect people. You shouldn't ask for too much, too many handouts. Don't take advantage of vulnerable people. Some of those rules are a little redundant. Like, might as well just take out 5 of those but don't be an asshole. But yeah, another reason why the company kind of collapsed during this time was because of an investment bubble. The Great Depression happened a decade after World War I ended, and during World War I, the government really pushed people to buy war bonds, which are a form of securities. You loan the government money, basically, and you get a little bit of profit on top of it. So people were already used to this idea of investing as a way to build generational wealth and stuff like that. and it wasn't a big leap to then also invest in the stock market. Now, after the war, the economy just boomed. Stocks just kept going up and up and up and up. And it just seemed like people couldn't lose. Brokers started giving people loans on top of their investment of 300% and stuff like that. You can imagine the risk that comes along with that. So when eventually the market did collapse, the investors, they lost all their money. The brokers, they had to fold. Everyone connected with them took a big hit. Anyone who owned stocks was kind of screwed out of their money. And that was pretty much everyone. Back then, you had these stock ticker machines that would spit out tape that would show you the price of stocks. And they had these absolutely everywhere in like small towns, in barber shops, random back rooms of any old kind of business. There would be a, ticker machine telling you what you made that day. So yeah, Great Depression, hobo stuff. There's a song that really kind of captures the mood of it. It's by Woody Guthrie, who is a great folk musician. And if you're at all interested in these types of subjects, you should check him out. But it's called I Ain't Got No Home, which is, very factual for a hobo. Well, I ain't got no home, no, I'm just a roaming around, just a wandering worker while I go from town to town, and the police make it hard for me everywhere I go, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Well, I was mining in your mines, I was gathering in your corn. I've been working, mister, ever since the day I was born. Now I worry all the time, like I've never done before, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. No, I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Well, my brothers and my sisters are gathered on that shore, a hot and dusty road that 1,000,000 feet I've trod. Well, the rich man took my home and he drove me from my door, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. No, I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Well, my wife laid down and died on that cabin floor, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Thank you. Yeah. So this hobo culture, funnily enough, it continued. Great Depression ended, but people learned we can hop freight trains and get places for free. And it just kind of persisted. Nowadays, there's this tiny subculture of people who still hop freight trains in the States, and it's kind of interwoven with like punk culture, and they call themselves dirty kids. And it's mostly young people who either had to ditch their lives for like external reasons, losing a job, stuff like that, or they'll have personal issues, let's say. Yeah, a lot of them aren't very in control of themselves, and it's a weird group of people. And they're very prideful as well. Some people do this for upwards of 10 years, and they'll take pride in, having traveled thousands of miles. They'll have pride in having hopped 100 freight trains. And they'll kind of look down on anyone who hasn't done it. any kind of niche group, they'll have very strong feelings of in-group, out-group dynamics. And to get into it is kind of difficult. There's the barrier to start doing it is kind of, it's dangerous, it's illegal, and every freight yard is different. And these people who are kind of like purists, they'll try to exclude as many people as possible. They say it's to keep the rails from being overpopulated, but really it's just because they want to feel cool. And they do this, for example, there's this book. It's called The Crew Change. And it's a book that's like a collection of facts about rail yards. Like, in El Paso, there's this rail yard a mile south from there, and there's a fence that you can easily get over, no cameras. And the trains that leave there to the east, they go to like New Mexico or whatever. And the book will tell you that. And these hardcore dirty kids, they'll make like fake crew changes that are made to get you caught. So that's how invested they are in their identities. So I did this for a while as well. I spent a summer hitchhiking and eventually accidentally ended up hopping freight trains as well. I'll tell you that. Well, I'll tell you that story in a little bit. But I guess I got to start at the start of the whole thing. Why I got into traveling in the first place was I just finished high school and I wanted to study something. I didn't really know what. I only applied to one school and I got rejected. I was like, okay, I've got a year. Let's just do whatever. I've never taken a year to just have fun, right? And so I went to the States. I sold a bunch of stuff and I just started hitchhiking with my little guitar. I thought I'd see where I'd go. So I started out in Michigan and I decided my first stop would be New York City because, you hear stories, you see movies. I figured I'd go and check it out for myself. So I hitchhiked from Michigan through Ohio, through Pennsylvania, and then into New York State. And I was at this turnpike, this toll. And, this is a place where cars, pay their toll and they all have to stop for a brief moment. Then they drive on. This should be a pretty good place to get a ride, right? But I stood there for an hour and nobody picked me up. And then this lady came and said to me, I've called the cops. If you're not gone in 15 minutes, you're getting arrested. Hitchhiking is illegal in New York. So I was sweating bullets. I was like, my life is over. I don't have anyone around here who can pay bail. I'm screwed. And within minutes, this truck stops. He's like, New York? So I get in, and we spend a bunch of hours driving and talking. And this was my favorite ride from, this entire summer. He told me this story. He was driving the exact same route, and he was at a truck stop. He was just going to go to sleep and catch some breakfast in the morning and then be on his way. Gets to bed. When he hears this knock on his door, he opens up and it's this young kid. Well, young, he was like 17. And he says, do you want some companionship tonight? And the guy goes, hell no, closes the door, goes to sleep. In the morning, he wakes up, he gets up to get some breakfast, and standing by the door of the truck stop is the same kid. Eye nearly swollen shut, bruises everywhere, and just standing there begging for money and for food. So the trucker just breaks his heart. So he asks the kid to come inside and sit down and have breakfast with him. He buys the kid breakfast and he asks, don't you have family somewhere, a place that you should go back to? I mean, must be bad if you're gone like this, but nothing, you know, it seems like there would be, you know, alternatives to what you're doing now. The kid goes, no, there's nobody that wants me anymore. My family kicked me out. They don't want to see me again. And the trucker, he takes a $50 bill, puts it on the table. He puts his phone on top of it, and he shoves it towards the kid, and he says, pick up that phone, call your mama, and you can have those $50. The kid thinks about it for a minute, you know, picks up the phone, calls his mother, and from the other end of the table, the trucker can just hear this woman like burst into tears on the phone, hearing her son's voice, just totally broken. So he drives the boy up to Boston, way out of his way. He's like losing a lot of money taking this detour, and brings the kid home. And afterwards, they kept in touch. They wrote letters back and forth. And things weren't great for the kid. You know, his family still sucked, but, you know, he's alive, you know. He thanked the trucker for saving his life. And as time went on, as in most long distance friendships, the letters became less frequent. And they never quite lost touch, but it just kind of got less. And then the trucker got this lung disease, and the doctors told him, you better get in touch with the people you need to get in touch with, because this is dangerous. So he sends a letter to the kid, he sends a letter to his family and whatever. And the kid immediately drives across the country to sit by this trucker's bedside for 2 weeks straight. And the trucker, he survives. And he swears to God that the reason he pulled through was this kid, you know, supporting him day in, day out. So in a sense, you know, he got him back. He saved each other's lives. Yeah, I really liked that trucker. It just, he had a lot of interesting things to say, and he was a good man. So I went to New York. Nothing interesting happened. I decided to go back to Michigan, and I was hitchhiking through Ohio. I was in Cleveland, and I was doing my thing, playing street music, you know, enjoying the sun. And this guy comes up, and he has a harmonica and starts playing with me. Had a blast. This guy's like 6'2", you know, stubble, wrinkles everywhere. He had about like 8 teeth left. Kind of like thin, oily hair down to his shoulders. Raging alcoholic, but a very nice guy. And we decided to travel together. He didn't really have a place to be, so I just took him with me to Michigan. So we were hitchhiking through Ohio, but absolutely nobody would pick us up. I think there was a recent incident where a hitchhiker did something nasty to somebody. It was all over the news, and nobody trusted hitchhikers for a while. So yeah, people, you know, honked at us, they yelled at us, they flipped us off. So we were like, okay, let's just start walking. Let's just see how far we get. I can't remember how long it was, like a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks, but we walked the entire distance from Cleveland to Toledo. And you get to know each other if you're spending every waking hour of the day with each other for, you know, well over a week. So Ray told me he was from the Navy, or he had been in the Navy, and that he had a family and that he hadn't seen them in a long time. And we were sitting in this Starbucks in a dinky little town out in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And he was telling me about his family. He said, I don't even remember what my kids' faces look like. And so I asked, have you tried Facebook? He was like, the what? This was, I think 7 years ago, so forgive him for not knowing what Facebook is. But I pulled it up on my phone, and he just looked at the pictures, scrolled through them back and forth, looked at each picture about 1 million times for 15 minutes straight, and he was just like shaking and tearing up. And it's the most fragile I think I've ever seen a person be. And then we left the Starbucks and didn't really talk about it. We just let it hang there in the air. It was what it was. I mean, what do you say about that, right? So we spent another month or two traveling together. We decided we'd go to New Orleans for Halloween, which is apparently one of the big kind of hot spots for dirty kids to, they all go to New Orleans for Halloween. They all go to New York City for New Year's. So we decided we'd go down there, and we made it to Knoxville, Tennessee, and we ran into these 2 cars full of hippies, and they both had 1 spare seat, and they were both going to New Orleans. And so we decided to split up, and I had no way of contacting Ray, right? So we promised to meet up, and I was like, my captain, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to have spent this last while with you. And he said, don't say that. You'll see me in New Orleans. I waited down there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, never showed up. So yeah, I don't know if he's still around. I don't know if Ray is still with us. But, I hope he got to see his kids. I hope he's doing all right for himself. And I hope he kind of finds some peace from all that pressure. We all deserve a little bit of that. So yeah, this is where we get to the part about how I started hopping freight trains. So we're in New Orleans, and New Orleans was particularly dangerous at this time. It started out kind of fun, but there were so many dirty kids, and it was so chaotic that bad things started happening. There was a lot of violence. There were people who passed away, people who were incarcerated. The locals were so fed up with it that on this one message board on the internet, dirty kids found out that this person was saying they should put rat poison in food and give it to the homeless kids. Just disgusting. And there's this kind of thing in the States where if you don't finish your meal, they'll give you, this white box to go, put the food in it, you take it with you. And they always give you like twice the amount that you're going to eat. Every restaurant, you end up taking something home. And that was mostly what dirty kids in New Orleans lived off of, just asking people for the leftovers. And honestly, your diet is probably better than most people's if you're eating restaurant food every day. But people would also, leave them on top of a trash can as a sign of, free food. You can have this, whoever. And when we heard about that message on the message board, you just saw piles and piles of these white boxes on trash cans untouched, just monoliths of food. So yeah, it was a scary place to be at the time. And I was with one of the kids. I was, from that hippie car, called himself Crow. And he was very afraid. He was having a very rough time. He saw some things that really touched him. And he was closing himself off. He was like really shutting down. Um, he was quiet, you know. He wasn't doing anything for himself. He was just kind of a leaf blowing in the wind. So I decided I got to get this guy out of here. You know, we tried hitchhiking and nobody would take us with them because, you know, the dirty kids were being so chaotic that nobody really wanted to have anything to do with us anymore. So we felt really stuck. And I'd heard about people hopping freight trains. Um, and I decided, what the hell, we're going to do it. So I told Crow, yeah, I've done this a million times. So you can trust me. Don't worry, we're not going to die. And I asked around, you know, where are the rail yards? How do we get there? I asked about a million people. And like I said, people are protective over their identity. They're not going to give away information to a first timer. And so I asked a million times until I found like 2 or 3 people who answered the same answer. And I just went with that. We went down to the rail yard and we sat in this ditch watching the trains go by. And he asked me, how do you do this? Do you like wait till it stops or do you wait till it moves and you jump on? I was like, you got to wait till it moves. Otherwise they're, you know, gonna like get you, which is totally false, by the way. I found out later. You have to wait till it stops and then you get on. We were also lucky enough that I got us to jump on the back end of the train car. Because if you're in the part that faces the wind, I don't know, fumes and stuff, people have had health problems after, you know, going on the front of a car. Yeah, it was just an awesome experience. You're just sitting on this thing moving at 80 miles an hour in the dead of night. You know, you're seeing forests whiz past and you're on this little platform and it's, I don't know, it's peaceful in a way. So we went to sleep and we woke up about 8 hours later in this random rail yard. We were all like disoriented, not knowing where we were and everything. And we got up and we booked it to the fence that we saw in the distance. And we climbed over it as fast as we could. Didn't want to get caught. And we walked through the woods for like 15 minutes, just hoping we'd end up somewhere, you know, with people. And we run into this highway. No cars, nothing. We just start walking a random direction. In 30 minutes, we came onto this town, totally quiet, not a single person around. We figured out that we were in Jackson, Mississippi. And we just walked down to Main Street, you know, the center of the city. Absolutely nobody there. There were like businesses that were like boarded up and stuff. And this was right around the time that Ebola was in the news. So we were like, an epidemic has struck, you know, Ebola broke out in Jackson and we're boned. We were just sitting there scratching our heads what to do now. A jug of iced tea had like burst in my bag. So I like took out my clothes and hung it on a tree to dry. And then we saw this guy just walking along, this skinny, older black guy. And he walked up and he was like, "Where are you guys from?" We said, "Oh, we just came from New Orleans." He said, "Wow, I heard there's women there that walk around without their tops on." Like he'd never seen a person with their shirt off. And it was just this surreal moment. Like, you know, you're in this town where it looks like the apocalypse struck. And then there's this guy who seemingly never left the 10-mile radius of where he was born. Really freaked us out. And then all of a sudden, all these people started coming out, filling the streets. And we realized, oh, it's Sunday. apparently everyone in Jackson is just super religious. Yeah, a weird town. People who walked by us, they kept saying, what was it exactly? They said, "Where are you from? We hope you'll stay here and be part of our family." And it sounded very culty. We were freaked out and we wanted to leave as soon as possible. We went to the library to find one of those library computers, check on the map where the nearest rail yard was, and get the hell out of there. And the library person said the same thing. We were like checking whether they were going to close the door on us or something. Eventually, we made it to that rail yard and we made it out. But yeah, there's strange places in this world. Yeah, it was an interesting summer. Hobos still existed. I found that out. And eventually, after some more rambling through the States, I found myself in North Carolina, visiting an old friend that I'd gone to school with previously. She said, all right, let's hang out with my friend, and then I'm going to take you to Connecticut to see my family, and then we'll come back. So we hung out, the three of us, and her friend was just this nice girl about my age, similar interests, all this stuff. We exchanged numbers. And throughout the week and a half that I was in Connecticut, we were just texting constantly and calling and everything. You know how it is, young love. And by the time we were back in North Carolina, I decided I was going to settle down here. Screw going back to the Netherlands. Screw going to college. Just going to settle down here and make a life for myself. And yeah, that's how my traveling story ends. And that's how this show ends. So I hope you guys enjoyed story time with Tom. So this live stream will be happening many more times, of course. I have it on good authority that the next couple artists are absolute bangers. So you're going to want to tune into that. You're already here, so you know where to find us. Yeah, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, guys.